I'll be getting into the esoterica of cooking later, but to start, the best advice that I can give any player is that you should use Barbara to make sweet madames. It's a very cheap recipe with a strong healing effect that you can get bonus crafts of. The bird meat required can be farmed by nuking Timmy's congregation of pigeons on the Mondstadt Bridge every 12 real-world hours. Then hunt some boars or use expeditions to get a stockpile of raw meat, and use Amber to cook steaks. 20% of the time, Amber will make a specialty steak instead, which is dramatically more powerful. If you have a Bennett, and let's be honest, if you don't have a Bennett, you'll want one, you can use them to turn birds' eggs into Tevat shard eggs, which have the same effect at an even lower cost. You can do this same thing with Noel to get an even stronger version of pancakes in order to get rid of all of those berries you collect, although you'll need to process some flour first. And this is honestly the highest return for cooking at the least effort. By doing weekly reputation quests for Mondstadt, you can unlock the craftable NRE. This is a gadget which allows one-button use of recovery foods while in combat, which is essential and will allow you to panic heal while you're exploring. It has 2 slots, one for recovery food and one for revival food, and will switch to whichever is required or available at the present time. But that's just the Cliff's Notes for cooking. If you want to properly understand cooking, there's actually a lot more to know. None of it is really necessary, but when have I ever backed down from a bad idea? Cooked foods can't be used in endgame content, so don't go thinking that this is a guide for getting an extra 20% damage in Spiral Abyss. The buffs and healing from cooking are only ever a supplemental bonus for exploration, story content, and doing dailies. It was also tangentially useful recently during the now infamous pay-to-win name card combat event, in which properly cooked food played a pivotal role in allowing underpowered accounts to platinum content that even dolphins were struggling with. So it's actually far from pointless. And here's what you need to know to make the most out of it.
Pizza! Pizza?
With the addition of the annual standard 5-star selector, you no longer have an excuse for not owning Jean. Jean is the pizza wife, and pizza is overpowered. Let's get into the hows and whys. All food dishes in Genshin have 4 properties: a type, a subtype, a quality, and a rarity. The types are easy. Recovery dishes, attack boosting dishes, and defense boosting dishes are self-explanatory. Adventure dishes provide either stamina bonuses or stamina recovery. There's also Natlan tribal food, which has no benefit and is basically just edible fireworks. Subtypes are the different kinds of effects that a dish can have within that type. Quality exists in 4 states of ascending strength: suspicious, normal, delicious, and special. Suspicious is the result of cooking food incorrectly and can sometimes be produced as an additional item by certain characters such as Hu Tao. These items are basically a joke, and while they can be used effectively, they are not desirable as they are statistically weaker than any other variant. Delicious is the result of cooking the food properly, and it's trivial to do so every time, and after doing it a certain number of times per dish, the number being dependent on the rarity of the dish, with rare dishes requiring more repetitions, you can have the game cook them to delicious quality automatically in amounts of up to 99 at a time. Special dishes are even stronger than delicious dishes, but can only be prepared by a certain character. More on that later. Manual cooking just requires hitting a button when the cursor overlaps the yellow section, and each dish has a different range that is determined by how long the food needs to be prepared and how hard of a recipe it is. This is mostly a flavorful concept, as you can tell by cooking it, that Clorand barely bothers cooking her duck meat. In the cooking screen, you'll notice that the effect applied is given as a range from a bottom value to a top value. This does not mean that the effect value is a random value inside that window. It's actually a representation of what the food provides at its worst quality to its highest quality, with normal quality splitting the difference. Rarity, or star rating, will determine the initial values of its effects and how expensive the recipe is. Recovery dishes only go as high as Tier 3, while other dishes can go as high as Tier 4, and a singular attack boosting dish exists in Tier 5. Dishes of the same type, subtype, quality, and rarity will have identical numerical effects, the primary differences between them being the ingredients necessary to make them, and whether or not a character on your roster is capable of cooking them as a special dish. This means that while 2 dishes may be statistically identical, they are not necessarily created equal. With the exception of Traveler and Raiden Shogun, because she's a stinky, fat NEET who only eats dango, or doesn't eat at all depending on if she sent the robot out today. Every playable character on the roster has a special dish that they can prepare. Special dishes are powered-up versions of the dish they resemble at the cost of being a small chance of being prepared instead of the regular dish. Special dishes can be considered a critical hit at cooking, with the crit chances being listed on the screen now. Most notably, the crit chance is lower at higher rarities, by 10%. The downside of special dishes is that they all require a specific character to cook them, and that, under the majority of circumstances, forgoes a bonus cooking chance afforded by many characters. The base roster of free characters includes 3 characters who have a 12% chance to produce bonus food when cooking dishes of a specific type. But all 3 of these characters cook special dishes outside of their specific type, which means you can't double up on bonuses. Special dishes will be more expensive to even attempt to make because of this, with a few exceptions. Jean, Diona, Nilou, and Yunjin all have special dishes within their bonus food types. Most advantageously, Diona and Jean specialize in recovery dishes, and Jean's invigorating pizza is tied for the most powerful healing item in the game, unless you're running an 80k HP Nilou, in which case it barely loses to Yoimiya's Summer Festival fish and its equivalents. Jean's passive talent to produce bonus food can proc alongside her specialty dish, producing bonus specialty dishes, and prevents the opportunity cost of targeting a specialty dish instead of one that can get bonus production. This is why Jean is, in my opinion, the best chef in all of Teyvat. The downside being that mushroom pizza is rate limited by how many mushrooms you can acquire. There's a lot of math involved, like seriously way too much math, but I'll give you the bottom line and tell you that producing a stockpile of invigorating pizza is not feasible over short periods of time. And if you plan on using them regularly, you won't be able to keep up. But making delicious mushroom pizza regularly is feasible, and it's an excellent thing to make for your NRE because of this, if you have Jean. Tier 1 special dishes can be effectively targeted for regular use due to their affordability and juiced probability. Outrider Champion Steak and Teyvat Charred Eggs are the prime candidate for this, but since revival dishes can only be eaten by dead characters, have a 2-minute cooldown, and no food item can be directly trashed in the inventory menu, it is an inevitability that you will hit inventory cap on the regular item and be incapable of making any more special dishes. What can I say? The game wasn't made with an infinite lifespan in mind. Oh, also there's scented meatballs from Sumaru. It's a recipe that, at delicious quality, can heal as well as a Tier 3 instant heal special dish, or slightly more poorly than a Tier 2 instant heal normal dish because it heals a random value determined by its quality. This is almost impossible to determine from the tooltip, and the recipe is really inconvenient. Recovery dishes have 3 subtypes. Instant healing dishes provide an instantaneous amount of health and nothing else. Continuous healing dishes provide an instant amount of health and 6 procs of additional healing spaced out every 5 seconds for 30 seconds. Both kinds of dishes have an initial heal value that is percentile based and a bonus heal value that is a flat rate. For continuous healing dishes, the regeneration procs are always a flat rate. The healing effects of food always apply to only one character. For dishes that provide a continuous healing effect, that effect will not transfer to a new character, and will instead continue to heal the character that is now benched. When using the NRE, if the currently selected character has their HP at maximum, the NRE will instead feed the selected recovery food to any remaining character that needs healing. As near as I can tell, the stat healing bonus does not apply to healing received from food. Instant healing dishes provide slightly more percentile-based healing. However, with a quick spot of math, we can determine that even when using an 80k HP R1 Nilou, this additional bonus doesn't necessarily overpower the fixed regen procs of continuous healing foods. And in most circumstances, when using standard DPS characters with a regular 20k HP pool, continuous healing is statistically superior. The downside being that it takes about 15 seconds for that superiority to take hold. Instant healing recovery dishes still have a distinct advantage in that regard, as you can use multiple of them in a row without overwriting their effects, as the regen from using multiple continuous healing items does not stack. Furthermore, if you use 2 regen dishes too close together, you effectively cut short their total effectiveness as the new regen overwrites the old one. The fullness mechanic means that characters can only eat so much food over a certain period of time, and when their fullness meter reaches maximum, a 30-second cooldown is started. This 30-second cooldown aligns perfectly with the 30-second regen afforded by continuous healing food. Fullness has a maximum value of 100 and takes approximately 5.5 minutes to fully empty, meaning that when the 30-second cooldown has elapsed, you won't have enough meter left to eat more than 1 dish, since the fullness consumption for eating any dish will be a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 30, plus an additional sum from an equation that factors in your max HP value and can never be negative. The max value that I computed was 48.15. Higher HP characters can eat more due to this equation. Again, there's a lot of math involved in figuring out the per fullness point efficiency of said healing. You can see the conclusions on screen if you're interested, but suffice it to say that the disparities are too negligible to make a practical difference. High HP characters get a much higher efficiency per fullness point, and while higher tier foods are more efficient than lower tiers, the numbers are tuned so that you will generally only be able to eat quality healing items 3 times before you're full. 80k HP characters can eat 4 2-star instant heals or 5 1-star instant heals before full, but the healing per point of fullness is substantially less, making this inadvisable. Also, if you use 2 healing items that have a 48% fullness point cost, and then eat a third, even though you only had 4 points of fullness left, you've gotten an unbelievable value for those 4 points due to overflowing the meter. And this applies when using food on cooldown, since the 30-second cooldown can only recover approximately 9 points of fullness, but it still allows you to eat a full meal. Admittedly, it's an edge case. Recovery food should never need to be relied on this much, since it's not usable in Abyss or Imaginarium. But under a microscope, continuous healing foods are superior outside of absurdly well-built max HP scaling characters in particular. The third subtype of recovery dishes are revival dishes. These revive one party member from being fainted and heal them with a flat rate of HP instantly, although that flat rate of HP is pathetic on its own, and this is why you should never use normal dishes for revival. Notably, revival dishes do not contribute to fullness. Revival dishes that are made as a special dish provide a max HP scaling recovery, while normal ones don't. This is much more competitive. The raw amount of healing that revival dishes can provide over time is quite small, as you can only use 1 revival dish every 2 minutes, which makes optimizing revival dishes mostly a comfort thing. The one place you'll probably use your NRE most often is in co-op for trounce domains, since you may be relying on 8-year-olds halfway across the globe for your healing. And unfortunately, revival dishes can't be used there. But having a fair amount of health on revive can somewhat take the edge off, since revived characters have no invulnerability and might get killed instantly if you're not fast enough on healing, so this buffer is nice to have. As previously mentioned, everyone has access to making Outrider Champion Steak with Amber, and this should honestly be the only thing you put in your NRE revival slot unless you have Bennett to make eggs, or use your Noelle to make her signature pancakes. These recipes provide a 10% max HP heal on revival plus a flat bonus, which will equate to approximately 2000 HP with standard non-HP scaling characters. Noelle's lighter than air pancakes provide a 15% max HP heal, and the recipe is surprisingly convenient, as its primary ingredient is berries, which not only spawn in 3s but are literally in all regions, and you'll probably trip over them anytime you go anywhere. It's a nice upgrade if you have a few thousand berries just lying around, and the flour can be processed from easily accessible wheat. Although it's worth mentioning that the tertiary ingredient in this recipe, alone, can be used to make an item with a similar effect at a 20% chance rather than a 15%. Tier 3 revival dishes can become shockingly expensive, most notably the crab, ham, and veggie bake, and they are comparable to Tier 1 specialties when used on low max HP characters. Sucrose can make this as a specialty dish, and a few other characters have equally expensive alternatives. These special variants provide 20% max HP and 1500 HP, but their 15% proc chance means that you'll need to make about 1,000 before you have a sufficient stockpile to use regularly, and the ingredients will likely be time-gated in such a way that it isn't sustainable to do so. The Tier 3 revival dish Golden Shrimp Balls does not have a special dish, but all its ingredients are available from vendors, although the flour is time-gated either by processing time or weekly reset. With a total cost of 1,620 mora prior to discount, it's not cheap. And its recipe is also locked behind Reputation Level 1 for Liyue, but it performs only marginally worse than Tier 1 special dishes. Attack and defense boosting dishes don't contribute to fullness, and they can be used together, although you cannot have the benefits of more than one attack dish and one defense dish active at the same time. They only last for 5 minutes, which makes them inconvenient for usage in the overworld, and as stated, they can't be used in endgame content such as Abyss or Imaginarium. Therefore, their ideal use case is for speeding up your daily domains, overworld boss fights, and combat events if the event allows it. 5 minutes might be just enough time to spend all your condensed resin in a standard domain, although you will probably need to use one for each Trouts domain or overworld boss due to bosses usually stalling for time or having phase transitions. Thankfully, overworld bosses that aren't a hypostasis can be blasted down in seconds using the right team, and, as of recent patches, they respawn instantly once you move slightly away, finally allowing a single food buff to fit within the cycle of multiple overworld bosses. Food buff timers are paused when not logged in, and will still tick down while using fast travel. This used to be important when bosses respawned quickly but still needed you to zone transition, but now they just respawn if you move like 10 feet away. There are no 1-star attack boosting dishes. 2 and 3-star attack boosting dishes can provide flat attack bonuses or crit rate at an amount determined by their rarity, and do so for the entire party. Dailuk, Chi-Chi, Kanich, Moika, Nuvolette, and Linny can make 3-star special dishes that boost crit rate and also boost crit damage. Fischl can make a 3-star physical damage boosting special dish for some reason. She's just weird like that. And other attack boosting special dishes are just stronger versions of their delicious counterparts. 4-star attack boosting dishes increase attack and crit rate or physical damage and crit rate, and there are no special dishes in this rarity tier and type. The aforementioned 5-star recipe, known as the Adeptus' Temptation, increases attack and crit rate, and its statistical superiority over the 3-star special dishes is a topic of debate. The special dishes provide a staggering 60 crit value, while the Temptation provides 24 crit value and a 372 attack bonus. Assuming a character with high base attack using a high base attack weapon, Navia with Verdict for instance, Adeptus' Temptation's attack boost would be roughly equivalent to acquiring 37% attack percent from artifacts stats. 4-star attack boosting foods provide 31%, 3-star provides 22%, and 2-star provides about 8%. Once again, these bonuses are provided as flat values, and on characters with lower base attack, these flat values can be dramatically higher relative percentages. Conventional wisdom is to multiply your crit rate by 2 and then compare it to the value of your attack percent and crit damage values. You want all of them to be balanced and as high as possible, although generally I see people aiming for better crit values above all else. By computing the values of Temptation as 37% attack bonus and 24% crit value from the 12% crit rate, the dish provides a 61% stat value bonus, just barely ahead of 3-star special dishes at a 60% crit value. The equivalent attack bonus percentage is higher for characters with lower base attack, meaning that on anything but an absolutely maximized whale account, Temptation pulls ahead. Temptation is also a standard dish that can simply be cooked without relying on dice rolls, but the flat attack bonus will not be useful on characters that scale their damage with defense, max HP, or stats like energy recharge or elemental mastery. This gives the 60% crit value of the 3-star dishes a much broader application, as anyone that isn't Kokomi will get some value out of critical hits. That is, provided they aren't overcapping on crit rate. If we assume that our crit rate is 100% prior to these bonuses, then Temptation provides 37% relative attack bonus if we're being conservative, and the 3-star special dishes only provide a meager 20% crit damage. But it is worth mentioning that there is no practical application for this theory crafting. We can drill down on the numbers for this for ages, and it might save us 5 seconds on an overworld boss provided we don't mess up our rotation or miss a damage window. Also, I'm not a build expert. I'm not making spreadsheets. I'm lucky if I get a single star on Floor 12 Chamber 3 with this 16-month-old free-to-play account that I didn't play for 6 months in 2024. A funny quirk about Adeptus' Temptation is that all of its components can be purchased from shops. The ham can only be purchased weekly, the matsutake mushrooms can be purchased every 72 hours, and the fish and crab can be purchased daily. The amount limits are low and the costs are high, but for players with an excess of mora, gathering the ingredients is as simple as visiting shops. The ham is simple enough to process yourself, it's just beef and salt. The crab is effectively the limiting reagent. In terms of the 3-star special dish recipes, most of them take either meat or fish in large quantities, which makes farming them out a bit of a pain. Kenichi's Saurian Hunter's Reward takes 4 raw meat, but the other ingredients are functionally unlimited from shops. Chi-Chi's No Tomorrow takes 3 meat and 3 fish. That's a non-starter. Diluc's Once Upon a Time in Mondstadt takes small lampgrass. No thank you. Nouvelette's Consul Pureté takes 3 fowl, but also a marcotte. Same story. Mawika's Hymn of Gathered Flame takes 2 fish, but also 4 grain fruit, so that's not very tempting. And finally, if you happen to be one of the 12 players who rolled for Linny, Cubic Tricks just takes a buell fruit, sugar, and jam. If you've cooked a lot of hash browns in your day, you'll know that jam isn't super easy to get, but not terribly difficult either. So this is probably the most sustainable recipe to farm. The statistical advantage of using defense boosting dishes is much more complex and will depend upon the main stats that your party desires. These dishes can increase defense by relatively negligible flat value, but a variety of other things by scaling percentages such as shield strength, healing bonus, and max HP. Of these values, max HP is likely the most important, as they can provide as high as 30% on a special dish, in order to feed bonus damage to an HP scaling character such as Yelan or Nilou. As is the case with any other percentile buffs, this additional HP percent is lumped in with any other HP percent and then calculated as a multiplier to the character's base HP value before flat HP bonuses. This results in about 4,500 HP in characters like Nilou and Yelan, with the low end being Fischl, who receives just 2,700. While the healing bonuses can be significant, healing bonus is usually overkill, and if there is a character that scales their damage from healing bonus, I've forgotten who they are. Shield strength bonuses may provide additional comfort, but the amount of time this will save during content is abstract. Additional defense, applied as a flat rate, will be at best 282 points. When used on a def scaling character like Ito with a high base defense, this equates to just under a 30% def bonus, which scales up with weaker characters. Since the base HP and base def of a character cannot be modified by any kind of equipment, the relative bonus that a character receives is perfectly fixed when at max level. This differs from the relative bonus of attack scaling characters, as their base attack will differ wildly depending on the quality of their equipped weapon. It's worth noting that defense boosting dishes can be used alongside attack boosting dishes. So if you're running defense scaling characters, you want crit focused attack scaling dishes, on top of using defense boosting dishes in order to double dip damage or effect scaling. If you're using a team that is still primarily attack scaling, but are using Shilonen as the support, you might as well have a def boosting dish on anyway, as she will get a bonus. It will only affect her damage and healing, which are negligible and overkill respectively, but it's more than nothing. Finally, we come to adventure dishes. There are 2 subtypes, stamina bonuses and stamina restoration. 2-star stamina bonus adventure dishes provide a sprinting stamina consumption reduction of 25%, and 3 stars extends this bonus to climbing or gliding as well depending on the dish. Specialty dishes extend this effect from 15 minutes to 25, and Venti and Chaska's specialty dishes, which improves gliding and sprinting, just had to be different and lasts 30 minutes. Stamina restoration dishes restore 60 stamina at Tier 2 and 100 stamina at Tier 3. For special dishes, these numbers are tweaked to 80 and 130 respectively. Stamina restoration dishes are never truly necessary, and since they can't be placed in the NRE, using them will generally end up wasting time. They are only considerably useful when trying to scale massive cliffs or glide long distances to get places you really shouldn't, but under those circumstances there's always a better way that was intended to be taken by the game's design. Theoretically, you can use these dishes to improve your combat potential by allowing you to perform more charged attacks, but once again, you can't use food in Abyss. There are 3 unique adventure dishes. The Meat Nado restores 25 stamina every time an opponent is defeated, which is the only truly combat-relevant food in the adventure dish category. This effect lasts for 15 minutes. Apple Roly Poly provides healing anytime you spend resin or open a chest, more or less, and lasts 15 minutes. Generally awful, don't bother, it can basically only provide healing when you don't need it anymore, and just eating the apples in this recipe would restore 1200 HP anyway. Finally, Goulash provides a resistance to sheer cold, which is felt in Dragonspine and during certain boss fights. The effect is 50% when at delicious quality, and also lasts for 15 minutes. And while it is a nice bonus, it's never strictly necessary. The Battle Pass has a weekly objective to cook 20 items. Even if your stockpiles are pretty full, you'll probably still want to complete this. Since it's fairly simple to complete the Battle Pass within the first half of any patch, you may only need to complete this objective half the time, but I do advise having a meal planned in mind for what to cook when it comes to it. Monday morning is a good time to assess your current food stocks and bake anything that isn't running low. Rather than cooking every day, you can set aside a bit of time for cooking on Monday or Sunday, and passively gather the ingredients for this meal plan throughout the week, because every ingredient is at least a little time-gated. If you want to target special dishes, you will quickly find yourself limited by the amount of ingredients you are even capable of acquiring over time. Items such as wheat, milk, cabbages, and other sundries can be purchased in the hundreds from grocers around Tevat, and those refresh daily. These ingredients are rarely, if ever, the limiting factors in cooking, however. They may still need to be processed into something like cheese, in which case the amount of cheese you can acquire per week is limited by cheese processing time, rather than how much milk you can acquire. Other items can only be acquired by foraging, such as pine cones and mushrooms. You can acquire them at a rather fixed rate on a daily schedule using expeditions, but the rate is rather low, and comes at the opportunity cost of instead using those expeditions to acquire Mora. Mushrooms can be bought in stores, only 10 per day in Natlan, and 20 every 3 days in other places, and they cost 180 more each. The Mora cost of cooking ingredients isn't severe, but isn't trivial. If you want to forage for mushrooms to make pizza, there is also an absolute maximum that you can acquire every 48 hours. According to the Tevat interactive map, only approximately 900 mushrooms exist to be harvested in the game at any given time, and respawn every 2 days. This means that if you really wanted to push the limit, you could make maybe 800 mushroom pizzas a week, or with Jean's passive, almost 900, or loosely 135 invigorating pizzas per week. But you don't want to know how much running around the world map that would actually take. Generic fish, boars, and birds that can be hunted for their meat refresh on a 12-hour schedule. Timmy's flock of birds on the Mondstadt Bridge is, to my knowledge, the most reliable source of fowl. Any character with a skill or burst that has a wide area of effect can be used to gather them, just so long as you seek not the friendship of pigeons. Ganyu's Charge Shot is hilariously good for this, especially considering her diet. The pack animals in Sumeru, as well as many of the predators, drop an embarrassment of meat when killed, and is definitely the most optimal way to gather steak. Fish is much less convenient though. You can go fishing with a rod and line and then convert your cache into fish meat, but while this may be reliable, it's very slow. Fish that are caught in this manner refresh on a 72-hour schedule, rather than 12, on top of which you have to spend resources to get the bait to catch them in the first place, effectively converting flowers and money into fish meat and wasted time. The bottom line is that every recipe is going to have a hard limit of how many of them you can make per day. This limit is more than sufficient for casual use of delicious foods, but outside of 1-star revival foods, quickly becomes impractical or impossible for the production of special dishes. so treat special dishes as something to use on special occasions rather than something to mainline. Every 3-star recovery food includes some kind of ingredient that is either difficult or time-gated to acquire. Buell fruit souffle looks like a great option until you realize that just shy of 300 Buell fruit spawn every 48 hours according to the map. An old standby is Mondstadt hash browns, famously made from pine cones and jam. But every jam needs 3 Sunsetias and just shy of 600 of those spawn every 48 hours. Mushrooms are commonly found in everywhere except Inazuma for some reason, which means that even though every pizza needs 4, it's still far from the worst you can do. When considering making a recipe in any significant quantity, you'll need to break down its components into processing time and the limits to its availability. This can be an incredibly complex equation, which is honestly too much effort to even begin, and is far too inefficient for my Factorio-maimed choo-choo brain. There exists a singular recipe that can be thrown together using only purchasable ingredients that are freely available in massive quantities each day. Tasses Ragout. This recipe is available from a very short world quest in which you herd some dogs through a flower maze in Fontaine. As a 2-star instant healing item, it's no slouch, but it's not incredible. It's a direct competitor to Sweet Madame's, but since you have to get to Fontaine first, it's not immediately available to new players, which is where it would be most useful. With a per item cost of 720 mora, or discounted to 625 mora per item, and all 3 ingredients being available in allotments of 100 from each grocery vendor, you can make 200 of these dishes every day if you care to shell out the money. It's not expensive, but it's not cheap, costing an endgame player about 125,000 mora to make 200. It's nothing if not convenient. Unfortunately, there is not currently a specialty dish that can be made out of Tasses Ragout. If there was, it would definitely be one of the best dishes in the game for its availability and strength. As is, it's effectively cheap takeout. And speaking of takeout, restaurants throughout Teyvat sell both dishes and recipes. They also offer a variety of pre-processed ingredients in a small amount for ludicrous markups. And they only refresh once per week. If you're curious about the respawn timer of an item in a shop, you can simply select it and look at the bottom of your screen. Many ingredients such as milk and salt can only be acquired in meaningful quantities at the grocery store. To save money on these purchases, prioritize buying ingredients from countries that you have a reputation-based 10% discount with. Or to avoid spending more on ingredients at all, many boxes, stalls, and random clutter in the world have a sparkle effect on them with the prompt to investigate. Under the majority of circumstances, this will pop out a random assortment of grocery items: wheat, potato, cabbages, tomatoes, apples, that sort of thing. No mushrooms, milk, salt, or pepper though. They can also contain artifacts or mora, or in the odd place here or there, a lore dump that you'll have to mash through. Attacking bushes with a bladed weapon will destroy them, and have a low chance of spawning a bird's egg or a matsutake mushroom. Bushes have no permanence and will respawn if you move a dozen or so meters away. This means that eggs and matsutakes are functionally unlimited, and the only non-time-gated ingredients used in cooking. However, while they can be farmed infinitely in this way, it is unbelievably dull, and I wouldn't advise it. There's a handful of forageable ingredients that are all over the place. Sunsetias and sweet flowers can be made into jam, mushrooms into pizza, berries into pancakes, pine cones into hash browns, eggs into charred eggs, and mint can be forgotten. Mint is absolutely everywhere, every region, every country except the Sumeru Desert, and you'll be picking it up in vast quantities just to hear the sound effect. But its practical applications are dubious if even existent. The few recipes in which mint is a primary ingredient rather than an afterthought are very weak, and also take secondary ingredients that are inconvenient or rate limited. The crispy potato shrimp platter is a tier 3 continuous healing food, but it also takes 4 shrimp meat and 3 potatoes which need to be bought from the grocery store, and also takes 2 berries. It's not an awful recipe, but using it to exhaust your mint stores is expensive. Other options include mint salad, which provides such a weak flat attack bonus that I doubt you would even notice it, and the 3-star adventure dish minty meat rolls, which unfortunately takes 3 raw meat, doesn't come easy, and both of these recipes require Julian chilies, which can be a pain to source due to being a local specialty. Mint jelly requires more sweet flowers than it does mint. Minty fruit tea requires 3 sunsetias, 3 berries, and 2 sweet flowers, as well as 3 mint. Grilled fish in mint sauce requires fish. The unfortunate fact is that even if you're really into Genshin cooking, you're unlikely to exhaust your stockpiles of mint anytime soon. Its only real use is to convert it into blue dye for furniture. But if you're convinced to get some value out of this mint and you're willing to go well out of your way, here's what to do. Teleport to Xingxi Village. I think that's how it's pronounced. Equip your seed box and walk down the road, collecting all the chilies along the way. Plant the seeds you gather in your teapot, and 3 days later they will grow in bunches of 3. Every chili gathered is 4 mint that you can destroy. 24 chilies farmed every 72 hours means 224 mint can be spent every week, with the result being an attack-boosting food that you can use constantly without worry. Chilies respawn faster than they grow, but if you place your farm plot next to your housing, you can basically use the harvest cycle as a reminder to do the picking cycle. There are better uses for your farm plots, but being able to convert your passive mint into literally anything is nice. Lastly, the latest 5-star character, Veressa, known Champion Eater, has a passive talent that provides 20 phlogiston when consuming food. This can only take effect when in the overworld, as it does not function in domains. While intriguing, this talent is difficult to use effectively. For starters, it has a 10-second cooldown. It does trigger off of attack and defense boosting dishes, as well as adventure dishes, and even apples and other 5 fullness fruits. Or you could use Natlan tribal food. These can be put into your NRE and restore basically no HP, and take only a minimal amount of fullness. All that you have to do is ensure that you are missing a bit of HP and then count down the 10-second cooldown between uses, and you can get phlogiston from your NRE. These tribal foods are 4-star recipes, so they generally aren't cheap, but Puff Pops is the most affordable by a mile. A single grain fruit, sugar, salt, and pepper. It's popcorn. Trivial to make a bunch and stock up. In practice it hardly makes a difference, but it's just a nifty little trick to keep in mind. Oh crap. Late correction. The actual day before this video was scheduled to go live, a second 5-star dish recipe was made available. This is a 5-star def boosting dish that provides max HP and energy recharge. It is the only dish in the entire game that can provide ER, and its recipe is surprisingly affordable, save for the crab. It's locked behind getting level 4 reputation with all 6 Natlan tribes. Its def boosting nature means that it can be used concurrently with Adeptus' Temptation. And its bonus 20% ER can smooth over a lot of energy problems. Again, food cannot be used in endgame content, however, making this dish nice but not really a game changer. Thanks for making me completely re-render and re-upload my video, miHoYo.